You never expect to come home early and find your wife making waves, unless you're the pool boy. I'm not. I own the damn house. My name is Jake Morrison, and I run Morrison's custom auto shop on the outskirts of Cedar Falls. 38 years old, calloused hands, and a reputation for fixing anything with an engine. I built my business from nothing, working 16-hour days until I could afford the kind of life my wife Sarah always dreamed about. Our house was always full of people. Sarah's friends, her girlfriends, and even the husbands of those girlfriends were constantly hanging out at our place. We had a nice home, the kind of home that made parties easy, a jacuzzi, a big pool, a huge backyard that could fit dozens of people without anyone feeling crowded. So most weekends, everyone came to us. It looked like a perfect life from the outside. Sarah would spend hours preparing, arranging flowers, setting up the outdoor bar, making sure everything was Instagram perfect. She had this way of making everyone feel welcome, like our home was their home too. But to keep that life running, I worked late. Weekdays, I was rarely home before 1 in the morning. I would walk in exhausted, drop my keys on the kitchen counter, and go straight to bed while the house still smelled like someone else's perfume and loud laughter from earlier. The routine was always the same. I'd shower off the grease and motor oil, slip into bed next to Sarah, and she'd mumble something about how much fun everyone had. Then the weekend would come, and the cycle would repeat. At first, I thought it was normal. Friends gather, people relax, nothing strange. Sarah seemed happy, and that made me happy. She'd grown up poor, just like me, and seeing her surrounded by friends in our beautiful home felt like proof that we'd made it. But over time, I started noticing one detail that kept showing up no matter how much I tried to ignore it. At these parties, Sarah was always very close with the husband of one of her friends. Not just friendly, not just talking. His name was Brad Collins, married to Sarah's best friend since college, Amanda. Brad was one of those guys who peaked in high school, former football star still wearing his Letterman jacket mentality at 35. He worked in insurance, drove a flashy BMW he couldn't really afford, and had this cocky smile that made me want to punch him every time I saw it. It was the way Sarah and Brad leaned in when they talked, the way they touched each other's arms like it was automatic, the way they stayed side by side even when the group moved around. It looked like a couple trying to pretend they weren't a couple. I'd catch them whispering by the pool while everyone else was inside. I'd see them sharing private jokes that made Sarah laugh in a way she hadn't laughed with me in years. And when I'd walk into a room, they'd spring apart like teenagers caught by their parents. The worst part? Everyone else seemed to notice too. I'd catch the other wives exchanging glances. I'd see the guys looking uncomfortable when Brad would put his hand on Sarah's lower back while she was bent over the grill. I asked Sarah about it one night, after a particularly obvious display. We were cleaning up after another party, and I couldn't keep quiet anymore. "What's going on with you and Brad?" I said, trying to keep my voice casual while I stacked plates. Sarah froze for just a second, then smiled like I was being dramatic. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. The way you two act around each other. It doesn't look like simple friendship." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Jake, you're being paranoid. Brad and I are old friends. We've known each other since before you and I met." "That's not what I'm talking about, and you know it." Sarah set down the wine glasses she was holding and turned to face me fully. "Look, I'll be honest with you. Years ago, before Amanda, before you, Brad and I dated briefly. It was nothing serious, just a college thing. But we stayed friends because we run in the same circles." "Dated?" "For like 3 months, Jake. It was years ago. We both moved on. I found you, he found Amanda. That's the whole story." But it wasn't the whole story. I could see it in her eyes, the way she looked away when she said it. Sarah was hiding something, and she was getting bolder every week. The parties continued, the touching continued, and I continued working late, telling myself I was being paranoid, that Sarah wouldn't do this to me, to us. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, really wrong. 3 weeks later, Sarah started complaining that I worked too much. "You're never home, Jake," she said over breakfast on a Tuesday morning. "I feel like I'm married to a ghost." "I'm building something for us," I replied, buttering my toast. "The shop's busier than ever. That's good news. But what's the point of having money if we never spend time together?" She reached across the table and touched my hand. "I miss you." Looking back, I realized she was probably feeling guilty. Maybe she thought if she could get me home more, she could control herself around Brad. Or maybe she was just trying to throw me off the scent. "You're right," I said, squeezing her hand. "How about I come home early Friday? We can have dinner, just the two of us." Sarah's face lit up. "Really? No work calls? No emergencies at the shop?" "I promise. Just you and me." But Friday morning, Sarah called me with a change of plans. "Amanda's having a rough day," she said. "Her mom's in the hospital and she needs some girl time. I invited her over to use the hot tub. You don't mind, do you?" I should have minded. I should have insisted on our dinner plans. But I was trying to be understanding, trying to be the supportive husband. "Of course not. Tell Amanda I hope her mom's okay." "You're the best, Jake. I love you." Those words would replay in my head for hours. I finished up at the shop around 6, earlier than I'd planned. I was actually excited to surprise Sarah, maybe join her and Amanda for a drink, show that I could be social too. I pulled into our driveway quietly, not wanting to disturb them if they were having a serious conversation about Amanda's mom. The house was dark except for the back patio lights, which made sense. They'd be outside by the hot tub. I walked through the house, planning to grab a beer and join them. But as I got closer to the sliding glass door that led to the backyard, I heard voices. And laughter. Male laughter. I stopped at the door and peered through the blinds. Sarah was in the hot tub, all right. But she wasn't with Amanda. She was with Brad. They were sitting close, very close, with Sarah's legs draped over his lap. They were drinking wine, laughing and touching each other like they had every right to be there together. And then, as I watched in frozen disbelief, Brad leaned over and kissed my wife. Not a friendly peck, not an accidental brush of lips, a deep, passionate kiss that went on and on while Sarah's hands tangled in his hair. For a second, I just stood there, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. This was my wife, my house, my life. Then something in me went completely calm. I didn't storm outside, I didn't shout, I didn't let them know I was there. Instead, I stepped back from the door, pulled out my phone, and did something that would change everything. I called Amanda. "Hello?" she answered on the third ring. She sounded tired, stressed. "Amanda, it's Jake. I need you to come over to our house right now." "Jake, what's wrong? Is Sarah okay?" I kept my voice steady, controlled. "There's something I need to show you. Something about Brad." There was a pause. "What do you mean?" "Just come over right now. Don't call ahead. Don't text anyone. Just come." "Jake, you're scaring me." "I'm sorry, but you need to see this for yourself. Trust me." Another pause, longer this time. "Okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I hung up and looked back through the blinds. Sarah and Brad were still in the hot tub, still touching, still acting like they owned the world. Sarah was laughing at something Brad was saying, her head thrown back in pure joy. When was the last time she'd laughed like that with me? I walked to the front door and waited. 9 minutes later, I saw Amanda's silver Mercedes pull into the driveway. She got out looking confused and worried, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, still wearing scrubs from her job at the medical clinic. "Jake, what's going on?" she asked as she walked up to me. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm so sorry. But you need to see this." I led her through the house toward the backyard. As we got closer, we could hear Sarah and Brad's voices more clearly, their laughter, the splash of water. "Is that Brad?" Amanda asked, confusion evident in her voice. "Yes, but he said he was working late tonight. He said he had paperwork to catch up on." I stopped at the sliding door and turned to Amanda. Before I show you this, I want you to know that I had no idea. I came home early to surprise Sarah, and I found them like this. Amanda's face was already changing, the confusion shifting to something darker. Found them like what? Instead of answering, I opened the blinds. Amanda looked outside and saw exactly what I had seen. Her husband in our hot tub with my wife, kissing like teenagers, completely lost in each other. The sound that came out of Amanda's throat was somewhere between a gasp and a growl. For a moment she just stood there, frozen, watching her husband betray her in the most obvious way possible. Then she exploded. "Brad! What the hell is going on?" Amanda stormed outside, and I followed, finally ready for the confrontation I'd been avoiding for months. The moment Amanda's voice cut through the night air, Sarah and Brad sprang apart like they'd been electrocuted. "Amanda!" Sarah gasped, her face going white even in the dim patio lighting. "I can explain!" "Explain what?" Amanda screamed, marching toward the hot tub. "Explain why my husband is making out with my best friend in her backyard?" Brad scrambled to the far side of the hot tub, his cocky confidence evaporating instantly. "Baby, this isn't what it looks like." "Don't you dare call me baby!" Amanda's voice was getting higher, more hysterical. "Don't you dare!" I stayed back, watching the scene unfold. Part of me wanted to jump in, to start yelling too, but something told me to let Amanda lead this fight. She deserved that much. Sarah was trying to climb out of the hot tub, water streaming down her bikini-clad body. "Amanda, please, let me explain. We were just talking, and things got carried away." "Carried away?" Amanda laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You call sticking your tongue down my husband's throat carried away?" "It was just a kiss," Brad said, finally finding his voice. "It didn't mean anything." That's when I finally spoke up. "Just a kiss?" I said, stepping into the light. "That's interesting because from where I was standing it looked like a lot more than just a kiss." All three of them turned to look at me. Sarah's eyes were wide with panic. Brad looked like he wanted to disappear, and Amanda looked like she was ready to commit murder. "Jake," Sarah said, her voice shaking, "how long have you been home?" "Long enough." I crossed my arms and leaned against the patio table. "Long enough to see exactly what kind of girl time you were having with Amanda." "This is insane," Brad said, finally climbing out of the hot tub and grabbing a towel. "It was just one kiss. We've all been drinking." "Have you?" I asked. "Because Amanda just got here and she looks pretty sober to me." Amanda was staring at her husband like she'd never seen him before. "How long has this been going on?" "Nothing's been going on," Sarah said quickly. "I swear, Amanda, this was the first time anything like this has happened." "Bullshit!" The word came out of my mouth before I could stop it. "I've been watching you two for months. The touching, the whispering, the way you act like you're already a couple." "You've been watching us?" Brad asked, wrapping the towel around his waist. "Hard not to, when you're practically dry humping my wife at every party." "Jake!" Sarah looked horrified. "What? You want me to pretend I haven't noticed? You want me to keep playing the oblivious husband while you two carry on right in front of me?" Amanda was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe this. I can't believe either of you would do this to me." "Amanda, please." Sarah reached for her friend, but Amanda jerked away. "Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me." "Baby, listen to me." Brad tried to approach his wife, but she backed away from him too. "I told you not to call me that." Amanda wiped her face with the back of her hand. "How long, Brad? How long have you been cheating on me?" "I haven't been cheating." "Don't lie to me!" Amanda's scream was so loud, I was surprised the neighbors didn't come running. "I can see it in your face. This isn't the first time." Brad looked at Sarah, then at me, then back at Amanda. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "What's complicated about it? You're married to Amanda, I'm married to Sarah, and you two are screwing around behind our backs. Seems pretty simple to me. We're not screwing around, Sarah said, but her voice was weak. Then what do you call this? Amanda gestured wildly at the hot tub, at Brad's state of undress, at the wine glasses scattered around the patio. It's just, we have a connection, Brad said quietly. A connection? Amanda's voice was dangerously low now. We've been married for 8 years, Brad. 8 years. And you throw it away for a connection? I didn't mean for this to happen, Sarah said, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. I love you, Amanda. You're my best friend. Best friends don't steal each other's husbands. I'm not stealing anyone, Sarah protested. It just happened. I'd heard enough. No, it didn't just happen. You made choices. Both of you made choices. You chose to lie to us, you chose to sneak around, and you chose to disrespect your marriages. Jake, please. Sarah turned to me, her eyes pleading. Can we talk about this privately? Why? So you can come up with more lies? So you can convince me this was some kind of accident? It was an accident. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You've been hurting me for months, every time you touched him, every time you whispered secrets with him, every time you chose him over me. Brad cleared his throat. Look, maybe we should all calm down and talk about this like adults. Adults? Amanda spun on him. Adults don't cheat on their spouses. We weren't cheating, he said weakly. Then what do you call what I just saw? Brad didn't have an answer for that. The four of us stood there in the awkward silence, the weight of betrayal hanging heavy in the air. The hot tub jets were still running, creating an almost obscene bubbling sound that seemed to mock the destruction of 2 marriages. Finally, Amanda spoke. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Amanda, no, Brad said, panic creeping into his voice. Don't say that, we can work this out. Work what out? The fact that you're in love with my best friend? The fact that you've been lying to me for God knows how long? I'm not in love with her, Brad said, but he couldn't look at Sarah when he said it. Aren't you? Amanda asked. Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like love. Sarah was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. This is all wrong. This isn't how it was supposed to happen. How was it supposed to happen? I asked. Were you planning to tell me eventually? Or were you just going to keep sneaking around until someone else caught you? I don't know, Sarah whispered. I don't know anything anymore. Amanda wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Well, I know something. I know I'm done. With both of you. She turned to me. Jake, I'm sorry you had to see this. I'm sorry they dragged you into their mess. I'm sorry too, I said. You deserved better than this. Amanda nodded, then looked at her husband one last time. I'll be staying at my sister's tonight. I want you out of the house by tomorrow. Amanda, wait. Brad started after her, but she held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. You've done enough damage for one night. And with that, Amanda Collins walked out of our backyard and out of our lives, leaving behind 2 cheaters and 1 very angry husband who was just beginning to understand the full scope of what he'd lost. After Amanda left, the 3 of us stood in uncomfortable silence. The party was over, literally and figuratively. Sarah was still crying, clutching a towel around herself. Brad looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. And me? I felt strangely calm, like the other shoe had finally dropped after months of waiting. Jake, Sarah started. Please, let me explain. Explain what? I cut her off. Explain how you've been lying to my face for months? Explain how you've been making a fool of me in front of all our friends? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Sarah? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife has been having an affair with her best friend's husband. We haven't had an affair, Brad said, finally speaking up. We haven't slept together. I turned to look at him. Oh, well, that makes it all better then. You've only been emotionally cheating and making out in my hot tub. Jake, I know you're angry. Angry? I laughed. Brad, angry doesn't begin to cover what I'm feeling right now. Sarah stepped between us. Please, both of you, let's just calm down and talk about this rationally. Rationally? I stared at my wife. You want to talk rationally about how you've been betraying our marriage? I haven't betrayed our marriage. Then what do you call this? I gestured around the patio, at the wine glasses, at Brad still standing there in just a towel. Sarah's face crumpled. I don't know. I don't know what to call it. I'll tell you what to call it, I said. It's called the end of our marriage. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. No, Sarah whispered. Jake, no, please don't say that. Why not? It's the truth, isn't it? You don't love me anymore. You love him. I pointed at Brad, who looked like he wanted to crawl under a rock. That's not true, Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? When was the last time you looked at me the way you look at him? When was the last time you laughed with me the way you laugh with him? Sarah opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. That's what I thought, I said. Brad cleared his throat. Look, maybe I should go. Let you two work this out. Work what out? I turned on him. You think there's something to work out here? I just think maybe if Sarah and I step back, if we stop seeing each other, maybe you two can what? Pretend this never happened? Pretend I didn't catch you with your tongue down my wife's throat? Jake, please, Sarah begged. We can get past this. We can go to counseling. We can what, Sarah? We can pretend that you haven't been in love with another man for months? We can pretend that every time you kiss me, you're not wishing I was him. Sarah started crying harder. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. Tell me the truth, for once in your life. Sarah looked at Brad, then back at me. For a moment, I thought she might actually be honest. I don't know how it happened, she said finally. Brad and we have history. And when he and Amanda started coming to our parties, being around him again brought back all these old feelings. Old feelings? We dated in college, Jake. I told you that. But what I didn't tell you was that it was serious, really serious. My stomach dropped. How serious? We were engaged. The words hit me like a physical blow. Engaged? For 6 months. We were planning a wedding, we had picked out rings, we were talking about our future together. What happened? Sarah glanced at Brad, who was staring at the ground. Brad got cold feet. He said he wasn't ready for marriage, that he needed to see what else was out there. So he dumped you. He broke up with me 2 months before our wedding. I was devastated. I looked at Brad. And then you married Amanda. A year later, he said quietly. Jesus Christ. I ran my hands through my hair. So this whole time, you've been carrying a torch for your ex-fiancé? No, Sarah said quickly. When I met you, I was over Brad. I loved you, Jake. I still love you. But you love him too. Sarah's silence was answer enough. Unbelievable, I said. Unfucking believable. Jake, language. Language. I stared at her. You're worried about my language? Sarah, you just told me you've been in love with 2 men for the past 5 years of our marriage. It's not that simple. It seems pretty simple to me. You married me because you couldn't have him. And now that he's back in your life, you've decided you want him after all. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? What's fair about me working 16-hour days to pay for this house, this lifestyle, these parties, while you're falling in love with another man? What's fair about me believing we had a good marriage while you're fantasizing about your ex-fiancé? Sarah was sobbing now. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and you let it happen. You chose to let it happen. I turned to Brad. And you. What's your excuse? You had a good wife, a woman who loved you, and you threw it away for what? A chance to relive your college days? Brad finally looked up. I never stopped loving Sarah. The admission hung in the air like a confession. Then why did you marry Amanda? I asked. Because I was young and stupid and scared. I thought I needed to experience life before I settled down. But I never got over Sarah. So you married Amanda as what? A consolation prize? I tried to love Amanda. I really did. And I do care about her, but she's not Sarah. No, she's not Sarah. I looked back and forth between them, these two people who had destroyed 2 marriages for a love story that should have ended in college. Well, congratulations, I said. You've got your second chance. I hope it was worth destroying everything else for. Jake, please. Sarah reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't. Just don't touch me. What are you going to do? She asked. I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved and trusted and built a life with, and felt something die inside my chest. I'm going to file for divorce, I said. First thing Monday morning. And with that, I walked back into the house, leaving Sarah and Brad to figure out what they'd won and what they'd lost. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and the slow, painful process of untangling a 5-year marriage. But the legal stuff was nothing compared to the social fallout. Word spread fast in our circle. Amanda had told her sister, who told her friends, who told their friends. By the end of the first week, everyone knew that Sarah Morrison and Brad Collins had been caught cheating on their spouses. The reactions were swift and brutal. The couples who had been regulars at our weekend parties suddenly stopped calling. The group chat that Sarah had been part of for years went silent. Invitations to barbecues and birthday parties dried up overnight. It turns out that when you're the cheating couple, people don't want to be associated with you. It makes them uncomfortable, like infidelity might be contagious. Sarah tried to reach out to some of her friends, but the responses were cold. These were women who had been in our backyard every weekend, drinking our wine and eating our food, but they had no loyalty to someone who would betray her marriage so publicly. The men were even worse. The husbands who had tolerated Brad's cockiness when he was just an annoying friend had no patience for him as a homewrecker. He got frozen out of the golf group, the fantasy football league, and the monthly poker game. I, on the other hand, became the object of sympathy. People who had barely spoken to me before were suddenly calling to check on me, inviting me out for drinks, making sure I was okay. Jake, man, I'm so sorry, said Mike Peterson, one of the guys from the neighborhood. I can't believe Sarah would do that to you. We were sitting at O'Malley's, a local bar that had become my refuge from the empty house. Yeah, well, I can't believe it either, I said, taking a sip of my beer. I mean, everyone could see that something was going on between her and Brad, but we all figured you knew and were okay with it. I looked at him. Everyone could see it? Mike looked uncomfortable. Well, yeah. They weren't exactly subtle about it. Why didn't anyone say anything to me? What were we supposed to say? Hey, Jake, your wife's flirting with Brad? That's not really our place, you know? I nodded, but inside I was angry. These people had watched my marriage fall apart and said nothing. They'd let me be the fool, the oblivious husband who didn't know what everyone else could see. Besides, Mike continued, we figured if it was really serious, you'd handle it. Well, I'm handling it now. Good for you, man. You deserve better than that. But did I? That was the question that kept me up at night. Had I been a good husband? Had I given Sarah everything she needed? Or had I been so focused on work, on providing, that I'd neglected the emotional side of our marriage? The doubts were eating me alive. Sarah had moved out of our house and was staying with her sister across town. She'd called several times, wanting to talk, wanting to work things out. But I wasn't interested. What was there to work out? She'd made her choice. Brad had also left his house, though I heard through the grapevine that he wasn't staying with Sarah. Apparently, they were taking things slow, which seemed ironic, considering they'd blown up 2 marriages to be together. Amanda, meanwhile, had filed for divorce and was being ruthless about it. She wanted half of everything, plus alimony, plus she was going after Brad's pension. I didn't blame her. If anyone deserved to come out ahead in this mess, it was Amanda. My own divorce was proceeding more quietly. Sarah wasn't fighting me on anything, which made me think she felt guilty about what she'd done. Or maybe she just wanted it over with so she could start her new life with Brad. Either way, it looked like we'd be divorced within a few months. The hardest part was the loneliness. I'd gotten used to having people around, to the noise and laughter that had filled our house every weekend. Now it was just me, rattling around in a 4-bedroom house that felt like a museum of my failed marriage. I thought about selling it, but my lawyer advised me to wait until the divorce was final. "Don't make any major decisions while you're emotional," she said. "You might regret them later." But I was already regretting things. I was regretting the years I'd spent working late instead of coming home to my wife. I was regretting not paying attention to the signs that something was wrong. I was regretting trusting people who didn't deserve my trust. Most of all, I was regretting that I'd let Sarah and Brad make a fool of me. That's when I started thinking about revenge. Not anything violent or illegal. I wasn't going to slash tires or burn down houses, but I wanted them to feel the same humiliation I'd felt, the same sense of betrayal and loss. I wanted them to understand that actions have consequences, and slowly a plan began to form in my mind. It started with a phone call from Tom Bradley, another guy from our old group. "Jake, you need to know something," he said. "Sarah and Brad are planning to come to Kevin's birthday party next weekend." Kevin was one of our mutual friends, and his birthday party was always a big deal. The kind of party that Sarah and I would have attended together just a few months ago. "So," I said, "so they're coming together, as a couple, like they think everything's just going to go back to normal." I felt anger rise in my chest. "Are you kidding me?" I wish I was. Kevin's wife is pissed about it, but Kevin says he can't uninvite them because they're still technically his friends. "What about Amanda? Is she invited?" "Yeah, but she's not coming. She said she doesn't want to see Brad." I thought about this for a moment. Sarah and Brad showing up at a party like nothing had happened, expecting our old friends to just accept their new relationship. The audacity was breathtaking. "Are you going?" Tom asked. "I wasn't planning on it." "You should. You should definitely go." "Why?" "Because if you don't show up, it looks like you're hiding, like you're ashamed of what happened. But if you do show up and you hold your head high, it shows everyone that you're the better person." Tom was right. If I stayed home, I looked like the victim. But if I went to the party and faced down Sarah and Brad, I looked like the wronged husband who refused to be intimidated. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." "Good. And Jake?" "Yeah?" "Make them sweat." I hung up the phone and smiled for the first time in weeks. Tom was right. It was time to stop hiding and start fighting back. It was time to make Sarah and Brad pay for what they'd done to me. Kevin's birthday party was held at his house, a sprawling ranch-style home with a huge deck that overlooked a small lake. Under normal circumstances, it would have been the kind of party Sarah and I attended together, mingling with friends, drinking good wine, and staying until the very end. But these weren't normal circumstances. I arrived fashionably late, around 8 o'clock, when the party was in full swing. I could hear laughter and music from the backyard as I walked up to the front door. Kevin answered the door himself, looking slightly uncomfortable when he saw me. "Jake! Hey man, glad you could make it." His smile was forced, and he kept glancing over his shoulder. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, handing him a bottle of expensive whiskey. "Happy birthday." "Thanks, this is great." Kevin looked at the bottle, then back at me. "Listen, Jake, I should probably tell you that Sarah and Brad are here." "Yeah, I know." Kevin's relief was visible. "Okay, good. I wasn't sure if you knew, and I didn't want it to be awkward." "Don't worry about it. We're all adults here." But as I walked through Kevin's house toward the backyard, I could feel the tension in the air. Conversations stopped as I passed. People who would normally greet me with enthusiasm gave me awkward nods and forced smiles. Everyone knew this was going to be a showdown. I stepped onto the deck and immediately spotted them. Sarah and Brad were standing by the railing, drinks in hand, talking to another couple. Sarah was wearing a red dress that I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Brad had his hand on her lower back in a possessive gesture that made my blood boil. They looked comfortable, happy, like they belonged together. Several people noticed me, and the conversations around me grew quieter. I could feel eyes on me as I walked to the bar and ordered a beer. "Jake." The voice behind me was familiar. I turned to see Lisa, Kevin's wife, looking concerned. "Hey, Lisa, great party. Are you okay? I mean, with them being here?" I glanced over at Sarah and Brad, who hadn't noticed me yet. "I'm fine. They have as much right to be here as I do. I told Kevin he should have talked to you first before inviting them." "It's not your problem, Lisa. Kevin's been friends with all of us for years. He shouldn't have to choose sides." Lisa nodded, but she still looked worried. "Just try to keep things civil, okay? Of course, I'm not here to cause trouble." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. I wasn't planning to start a fight, but I wasn't going to run away either. If Sarah and Brad wanted to flaunt their relationship in front of our old friends, they were going to have to do it with me watching. I took my beer and walked over to a group of guys I knew, positioning myself where I had a clear view of Sarah and Brad. The conversation was stilted at first. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen when the three of us inevitably crossed paths. It didn't take long. After about 20 minutes, Sarah excused herself from her conversation and walked toward the bathroom, which meant she had to pass right by me. Our eyes met as she approached, and I saw her hesitate for just a moment before continuing forward. "Jake." Her voice was quiet, uncertain. "Sarah." She stopped walking and turned to face me fully. "How are you?" "I'm great, never better." She flinched at the sarcasm in my voice. "You look good." "Thanks. You look—" I let my eyes travel over her dress, the one I'd bought her. "Familiar." Sarah's cheeks flushed. She'd gotten the message. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Privately?" "I don't think that's a good idea. Your boyfriend might get jealous." "He's not my boyfriend." I laughed. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you two are pretty cozy." "It's complicated, Jake." "No, it's not. You cheated on me with him, we're getting divorced, and now you're together. It's actually pretty simple." People around us were trying to pretend they weren't listening, but I could tell they were hanging on every word. "I never wanted it to happen this way," Sarah said. "How did you want it to happen? Did you want to keep sneaking around until I died of old age?" "That's not fair." "Fair?" My voice was getting louder now, and I could see people starting to stare openly. "You want to talk about fair?" Brad must have noticed the commotion because he started walking over, his jaw set in a way that suggested he was ready for a confrontation. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, stepping up next to Sarah. I looked at him, this man who had helped destroy my marriage, and felt a surge of pure hatred. "No problem at all. I was just telling my wife how good she looks in the dress I bought her." Brad's face darkened. "She's not your wife anymore." "Actually, she is. We're not divorced yet." "It's just paperwork at this point." "Is it? Because last I checked, we're still legally married, which means you're still sleeping with another man's wife." The conversation around us had stopped completely now. Everyone was watching our little drama play out. "Jake, please," Sarah said. "Don't do this here." "Do what? Tell the truth?" "I thought you liked the truth, Sarah. That's what you said when you told me about your feelings for Brad." "You're being cruel," she said. "Cruel?" I laughed. "I'm being cruel? That's rich, coming from the woman who spent months lying to my face while she carried on with her ex-fiancé." There were audible gasps from the people around us. Apparently, Not everyone had known about Sarah and Brad's history. "That's enough," Brad said, stepping forward. "You need to back off." "Or what?" I stood up from my chair, and we were suddenly face to face. "What are you going to do, Brad?" "I don't want to fight you, Jake." "No?" "Because you seem pretty eager to fight for my wife." "She was never really yours." The words hung in the air like a slap. Around us, I could hear people murmuring, shocked at Brad's audacity. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Sarah and I have history, real history. What you two had was just temporary." I felt something snap inside me. Before I could think about what I was doing, I grabbed Brad by his shirt and shoved him backward. "Jake, no!" Sarah screamed. Brad stumbled but didn't fall. He looked at me with surprise and anger, his hands coming up in a defensive position. "You want to do this?" he asked. "Jake, Brad, stop it." Kevin appeared beside us, looking panicked. "Not at my party, guys, come on." I looked around at all the faces staring at us, friends, acquaintances, people who had been in my backyard dozens of times over the years. They were all waiting to see what I would do next. And suddenly, I realized something. This wasn't the time or place for this fight. This wasn't how I wanted to get my revenge. I let go of Brad's shirt and stepped back. "You're right," I said to Kevin. "This isn't the place." I turned to Sarah and Brad, who were both looking at me warily. "Enjoy the party," I said. "Enjoy each other. But don't think this is over." I walked back into the house, grabbed my jacket, and left the party, knowing that everyone would be talking about what had just happened for weeks to come. But more importantly, I now knew exactly how I was going to get my revenge on Sarah and Brad. And it was going to be much more satisfying than a fistfight at a birthday party. The plan came to me 3 days after Kevin's birthday party while I was working late in my shop. I was underneath a 1967 Mustang, replacing the transmission, when my phone rang. "Morrison Auto," I answered, not bothering to crawl out from under the car. "Jake, it's Amanda." I was so surprised to hear from her that I nearly dropped my wrench. "Amanda, how are you?" "I'm okay. Well, no, that's not true. I'm not okay at all. But I'm surviving." I slid out from under the Mustang and wiped my hands on a rag. "What can I do for you?" "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay." "Did you know? Before that night, did you know they were having an affair?" I sighed. I suspected something was going on, but I didn't know for sure. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. "So you never saw them together? Never caught them doing anything?" "Not until that night." "Why?" There was a long pause. "Because I think they were a lot more careful around you than they were around me." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think I saw things, Jake. Things I dismissed at the time because I trusted them both." My stomach clenched. "What kind of things?" "Text messages. Brad would get these texts that made him smile, and when I asked who they were from, he'd say it was just work stuff. But now I realize they were probably from Sarah. Amanda. And there were times when Sarah would call our house looking for Brad, saying she needed to ask him something about planning a surprise for you. But you weren't having any birthday or anniversary coming up." Each word was like a knife in my gut. "How long do you think it was going on?" "Months, Jake. Maybe longer. I think we were both being played for fools." I closed my eyes and leaned against the workbench. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." "It's not your fault. They're good liars, both of them." "What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to destroy him in the divorce. I'm going to take everything he has and leave him with nothing." The venom in her voice was startling. Amanda had always been the sweet one in their marriage, the peacemaker, but betrayal had turned her into something harder. "Good for you," I said. "What about you? What are you going to do about Sarah?" "I don't know. The divorce is proceeding, but other than that..." You should make her pay, Jake. They both should pay for what they did to us. After we hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about Amanda's words. She was right. Sarah and Brad had played us both for fools. They'd been sneaking around behind our backs for months, maybe longer, while we went about our lives trusting them. They'd made us look like idiots. That's when the idea hit me. If they wanted to be together so badly, if they were willing to destroy 2 marriages to have their second chance, then maybe I should help them get what they wanted. All of it, including the consequences. I spent the next week planning. I made phone calls, did research, and put together a strategy that would give Sarah and Brad exactly what they deserved. The first step was the easiest. I called my lawyer and told her I wanted to expedite the divorce. Are you sure, Jake? Sometimes it's better to take your time with these things. I'm sure. I want it done as quickly as possible. Okay, but you should know that rushing might mean you don't get the best settlement. I don't care about the settlement. I just want out. That was a lie. I cared very much about the settlement, but not in the way she thought. The second step was more complicated. I had to reach out to some people I hadn't spoken to in years, people who knew Sarah and Brad from college, people who remembered their first engagement. What I learned was enlightening. According to their old friends, Sarah and Brad's relationship in college had been toxic. They'd broken up and gotten back together multiple times. Brad had cheated on Sarah at least twice that people knew about. And when he'd finally broken up with her before their wedding, it wasn't because he'd gotten cold feet about marriage in general. It was because he'd been sleeping with one of Sarah's sorority sisters. Sarah had never known about the other woman. She'd thought Brad had just panicked about commitment, but I knew, and soon Sarah would know too. The third step was the most satisfying. I called Kevin. Jake, hey man, how are you doing? I'm good, Kevin. Listen, I want to apologize for what happened at your party. Don't worry about it. We all understood why you were upset. Still, it was your birthday, and I shouldn't have caused a scene. It's forgotten, trust me. Good. Hey, I have a favor to ask. Sure, what do you need? Sarah's birthday is coming up in 2 weeks. I know we're getting divorced, but we have a lot of mutual friends, and I don't want people to feel like they have to choose sides. That's very mature of you. So I was thinking, what if you and Lisa threw her a birthday party? Nothing big, just the usual crowd. I'll even help pay for it. Kevin was quiet for a moment. Are you sure about this, Jake? Won't it be weird for you? I'm not planning to attend. I just think Sarah should have her friends around her on her birthday. This whole situation has been hard on everyone. Wow, that's really generous of you. Just don't tell Sarah it was my idea, okay? Let her think you and Lisa planned it. Of course, Jake, I have to say, you're handling this whole thing with a lot of class. If only he knew. Kevin and Lisa agreed to throw the party, and within a few days, the invitations went out. Sarah was reportedly thrilled that her friends still wanted to celebrate with her, despite everything that had happened. What she didn't know was that I had also made sure certain other people would be at that party, including Jennifer Walsh, the sorority sister that Brad had cheated with in college. Jennifer now lived about 2 hours away and worked as a real estate agent. When I called her, she was surprised to hear from me, but willing to listen. You want me to come to Sarah's birthday party? She asked. I think it would be good for her to see you again. You two were such good friends in college. Jake, I should probably tell you that you slept with Brad while he was engaged to Sarah? Yeah, I know. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. How do you know that? She finally asked. Does it matter? The question is, does Sarah know? No, God no, if she knew, she'd never speak to me again. Probably not. But here's the thing, Jennifer. Sarah's back with Brad now. They're planning to get married as soon as our divorce is final. They're getting married? Yep. And I think Sarah has the right to know what kind of man she's marrying, don't you? Another long silence. What do you want me to do? Jennifer asked. Just come to the party. Bring the photos. What photos? The ones from that weekend in Cancun. Spring break, senior year. The weekend Brad was supposed to be visiting his sick grandmother but was actually in Mexico with you. There was a pause on the line, long enough that I could hear Jennifer's breathing change, that slight hitch people make when they realize the past has hands. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, stripped of the casual tone she'd been using like armor. How do you— Never mind. I don't want to know how you know about those. That's smart, I said. Knowing how I know won't help you. Knowing what I'm going to do might. Jennifer exhaled slowly, like she was pressing her palm against a bruise. Will you come? She asked, even though she already knew the answer. People ask anyway because they want a chance to believe there's still an exit. Yes, I said, but I want you there too. Another pause. Then, this is going to destroy Sarah. Sarah's already destroyed, I replied. She's just standing upright because nobody's pushed the last domino yet. The question is whether she's going to make another huge mistake or finally learn the truth about the man she thinks she's in love with. Jennifer's sigh sounded tired, the sigh of someone who's been carrying other people's secrets for too long. Okay, she said finally. I'll be there. When I hung up, the silence in the room felt heavier, like the plan had shifted from idea to inevitability. Jennifer was the first witness. Not a rumor, not hearsay, not a vague, I heard something. She was living proof that Brad's pattern wasn't new, that he didn't just cheat, he rehearsed cheating, turned it into a habit early, polished it over years, and learned how to smile while doing it. The final piece of the puzzle was the easiest. I called Amanda. She picked up on the second ring, voice sharp. What do you want? I need you to do something for me, I said. What? I need you to go to Sarah's birthday party. Amanda actually laughed, a short burst like she thought I was joking. Are you insane? Why would I want to celebrate that woman's birthday? Because you're going to get to watch her world fall apart, I said. Front row. The line went quiet for a beat, then her voice lowered. Explain. So I did. I explained it in steps, because revenge isn't a scream, it's a schedule. I told her the timing, when Brad would arrive, when Sarah would be at her most confident, when the room would be full enough for witnesses, but intimate enough that nobody could pretend it didn't happen. I told her how Jennifer would be there, and what Jennifer knew, and how the Cancun photos would be introduced not like a bomb, but like a simple question asked too calmly to be ignored. I told her we weren't going to shout accusations. We were going to let Brad's own timeline trap him. Amanda listened without interrupting, and by the time I finished, she was laughing again. This time longer, darker, almost delighted. Jake Morrison, she said, you are absolutely diabolical. I didn't deny it. They had it coming. Yes, she replied, and her voice turned crisp with conviction. Yes, they did. Okay, I'm in. This is going to be beautiful. Beautiful. That was Amanda. She could turn destruction into art if it meant the right person was suffering. But I wasn't doing this for beauty. I was doing it for clarity. Because Sarah was still living in a fantasy where Brad was her escape hatch, her reward for enduring a marriage she'd already poisoned. She believed he was different. She believed he was finally ready. She believed she was special. Men like Brad survive on women believing they're special. Everything was set. Sarah's birthday party was going to be a night she'd never forget, and neither would Brad. I spent the next day checking details like a man planning a surgical procedure. Venue, guest list, seating, entry points. I didn't need a spy camera or a dramatic sting operation. I just needed the truth placed in the right room at the right time. Lies rot in private. Truth kills in public. Jennifer texted once. If she cries, I'm leaving. Fine, I replied. Just don't lie for her. Amanda texted after that. Do I bring a gift? Bring popcorn, I typed back, then deleted it. Too cute, too unserious. I replaced it with, bring your phone charged, you may be asked to confirm things. Then I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling for a moment, letting the tension settle into focus. There was a strange calm in knowing you were about to stop being the one blindsided, to stop being the person who discovers betrayal after the fact like an idiot reading yesterday's paper. Because what was coming wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reset, a public correction, a night where Brad would be forced to see that his tricks weren't invisible anymore, and Sarah would be forced to face the man she'd been calling love. And when the music was loud and the candles were lit and everyone was smiling for photos, one small question would split the room open. What photos? And once that door opened, there would be no closing it again. Sarah's birthday party was held at Kevin and Lisa's house, the same place where Brad and I had nearly come to blows 2 weeks earlier. But this time the atmosphere was different. This time I was in control. I arrived early before any of the other guests, carrying a large gift bag and wearing my most innocent smile. "Jake," Lisa answered the door looking surprised. "I thought you weren't coming." I changed my mind. I realized I was being petty. Sarah and I may be getting divorced, but that doesn't mean I can't wish her a happy birthday. Lisa looked uncertain. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" "It'll be fine. We're all adults." Kevin appeared behind his wife, looking even more concerned. "Jake, maybe you should reconsider. Sarah's bringing Brad, and after what happened last time..." "Kevin, relax. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to give Sarah her birthday present and then leave quietly." I held up the gift bag. "I found some old photo albums in our house, pictures from college, from our wedding, from vacations we took together. I thought she might want them." Lisa's expression softened. "That's so thoughtful, Jake. Like I said, just because we're getting divorced doesn't mean I want to hurt her." If only they knew. I helped Kevin set up the bar while Lisa arranged flowers and put out appetizers. The party was supposed to start at 7, and by 6:30 guests were already arriving. I positioned myself in the kitchen, where I could see everyone who came through the front door. At 7:15, Sarah arrived with Brad. She was wearing a blue dress I'd never seen before and laughing at something Brad was saying. They looked happy, relaxed, like a couple who had nothing to hide. When Sarah saw me, her smile faltered. "Jake, what are you doing here?" "Wishing you a happy birthday," I said, walking over with my gift bag. "I brought you something." Sarah looked at Brad, then back at me. That's very sweet of you. We may be getting divorced, but we had some good years together. I thought you might want these." I handed her the bag, and she looked inside at the photo albums. "Oh my God, Jake. Our wedding album? And the pictures from Italy?" "I made copies of everything for myself, but the originals should be with you." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just enjoy your party." Brad was watching this exchange with obvious discomfort. He didn't like me being there, didn't like me being nice to Sarah, and definitely didn't like the way Sarah was looking at me with gratitude and maybe a little regret. "That's very generous of you, Jake," he said, his voice tight. "I'm a generous guy," I replied, meeting his eyes. Sometimes generosity pays off in unexpected ways. Other guests were arriving now, and I melted back into the crowd, accepting condolences about my divorce and praise for how maturely I was handling everything. At 8 o'clock, Jennifer Walsh arrived. She looked good. Blonde hair, designer clothes, the kind of confidence that came with success. She was also nervous, which was understandable considering what she was about to do. I watched from across the room as Jennifer approached Sarah, who was standing by the fireplace with a group of friends. "Sarah? Oh my God, Sarah Morrison!" Sarah turned, and her face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Jennifer, I can't believe it! What are you doing here?" "Kevin invited me. I was in town for work, and he thought it would be fun to surprise you." The two women hugged, and I could see Sarah's friends looking curious. Jennifer had been part of their college crowd, but she'd fallen out of touch with most of them after graduation. "You look amazing," Sarah said. "I can't believe it's been so long." "I know, right? We have so much to catch up on." Jennifer's eyes found mine across the room, and I gave her a subtle nod. It was time for phase 2. At 8:30, Amanda arrived. This caused a much bigger stir than Jennifer's entrance. Conversation stopped as people noticed Brad's soon-to-be ex-wife walking through the front door. Amanda looked stunning. She was wearing a black cocktail dress that showed off her figure, her hair was professionally styled, and she carried herself with the confidence of a woman who had nothing to lose. Sarah saw her immediately and went pale. "Amanda, what are you doing here? It's your birthday, isn't it?" Amanda's smile was sharp as a knife. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Brad appeared at Sarah's side, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "Amanda, what are you doing here?" "Celebrating, Brad. Isn't that what we're all here for?" The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew this was going to be awkward, but no one knew quite how awkward it was about to get. I walked over to the group, carrying a fresh drink. "Amanda, I'm so glad you could make it." She turned to me with a smile that was almost predatory. "Jake, thank you for inviting me." Sarah looked confused. "You invited her?" "Of course. Amanda's been part of our group for years. Just because you and Brad decided to blow up your marriages doesn't mean the rest of us can't be civilized." The words hit their target. Sarah flinched, and Brad's jaw tightened. "Jake," Brad said, "maybe this isn't the best." "The best what? The best time for honesty? I think it's the perfect time." I raised my voice slightly, drawing attention from other guests. "In fact, I think tonight is going to be a great night for honesty. Don't you, Jennifer?" Jennifer, who had been talking quietly with some of the other women, looked over at me. "Absolutely, Jake. I think it's time for everyone to know the truth." Sarah looked back and forth between us, confusion evident on her face. "What truth? What are you talking about?" "Why don't you ask Jennifer?" I suggested. "She has some interesting stories about college, about spring break, senior year." The color drained from Brad's face. "Jake, don't," he said quietly. "Don't what? Don't tell Sarah about Cancun? About the weekend you were supposed to be visiting your sick grandmother but were actually in Mexico with Jennifer?" Sarah turned to look at Jennifer, who was pulling out her phone. "Jennifer, what is he talking about?" Jennifer looked genuinely sorry for what she was about to do, but she did it anyway. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have told you years ago." She held up her phone, showing a photo of herself and Brad on a beach, kissing, both of them clearly drunk and clearly together. "This was taken the weekend before Brad broke up with you, the weekend he told you he was visiting his grandmother in the hospital." Sarah stared at the photo, her face going through a series of emotions: confusion, realization, hurt, and finally rage. "You were cheating on me? With Jennifer?" "Sarah, I can explain," Brad started. "You can explain? You broke up with me because you said you weren't ready for commitment, but you were actually cheating on me? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like?" Sarah's voice was getting louder, and people were starting to stare openly now. Jennifer swiped to another photo, this one showing Brad and her in what was obviously a hotel room. "There are more," she said quietly. "A lot more." Sarah looked at the photos, then at Brad, then at me. "You knew about this?" she asked. "I found out recently. I thought you should know what kind of man you're planning to marry." "I can't believe this," Sarah whispered. "I can't believe any of this." "Believe it," Amanda said, stepping forward. "And while we're being honest, there's something else you should know." She pulled out her own phone and showed Sarah a series of text messages. "These are from Brad's phone, messages he sent to you while he was married to me." Sarah read the messages, her face growing paler with each one. "Some of these are from 2 years ago," she said. "That's right. He's been trying to get you back for 2 years, Sarah. While he was married to me, while you were married to Jake, he was planning this whole thing." Sarah looked at Brad like she'd never seen him before. "Is this true?" Brad opened his mouth to deny it, but no words came out. "It's true," I said. "He never got over you, Sarah. But not because he loved you, because he couldn't stand that you'd moved on and found happiness without him." "That's not true." Brad finally found his voice. "Isn't it? Then explain the messages. Explain Cancun. Explain why you married Amanda when you were supposedly still in love with Sarah." Brad looked around the room at all the faces staring at him, friends, acquaintances, people who had known him for years. "This is insane," he said. "You're all ganging up on me." "We're telling the truth," Amanda said. "Something you've never been very good at." Sarah was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I gave up my marriage for you," she said to Brad. "I gave up Jake. I gave up my friends. I gave up everything for you. And you can still have me," Brad said desperately. "Sarah, none of this changes how I feel about you now." "How you feel about me?" Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the way you felt about me when you were screwing Jennifer behind my back? Or the way you felt about me when you were sending me love letters while you were married to Amanda?" "Sarah, please." "No." Sarah's voice was firm now. "I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with this. I'm done with all of it." She turned to me, her eyes filled with regret. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife, this woman who had destroyed our marriage for a man who had never deserved her, and felt something like pity. "I know you are, Sarah, but sorry doesn't fix anything." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. She looked around the room one more time, at all the people who had witnessed her humiliation, then walked toward the door. "Sarah, wait," Brad called after her, but she didn't stop. He started to follow her, but Amanda stepped in his way. "Let her go, Brad. You've done enough damage for one lifetime." Brad looked at Amanda, then at me, then at all the faces staring at him with disgust and disappointment. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's completely over." And with that, Brad Collins walked out of the party and out of our lives, leaving behind 2 destroyed marriages and a room full of people who finally knew the truth about what kind of man he really was. I looked around the room at the shocked faces, at Jennifer putting away her phone, at Amanda straightening her dress with satisfaction. "Well," I said, raising my beer, "happy birthday, Sarah." And for the first time in months, I felt like I'd finally won.